Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back with part 3 of What If Deku had a durability quirk. It seems like most of you, if not the mass majority of you, are enjoying this series, so I'm of course glad to hear that and glad to see that. This series probably will be a decent bit in length, so bear with me, of course, as always. But I will probably start up a new series in the coming days, so I'll have 2 going simultaneously. Like I said, I think I might have said in a previous video, starting October, I do want to get more consistency in terms of my uploading schedules on different channels and stuff like that, so I'll be breaking down that in the next couple of days. Overall, though, that doesn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things if you just watch me on this channel. Okay, that's about it. That's all I really gotta say. I hope y'all enjoy. Make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And let's just get right into part 3 of What If Deku Had a Durability Quirk. Let's get it. Izuku now has a choice, Sir Night-Eye or Fat Gum. And for most of you, you can probably assume where he would choose. He said it before and he would say it again. He's going to Fat Gum, because that's the type of hero, at least the hybrid hero, he wants to be. He wants to be like All Might. I mean, of course he does. What kid doesn't want to be like the #1 hero? What kid doesn't want to be like All Might? So it's pretty obvious that he wants to be like All Might, but his quirk is perfect for a person like Fat Gum. Someone that is built to protect someone else. Someone that is built to just stand in front of an attack and basically protect someone from all damage. That's what Izuku wants to be, and maybe in the future he'll even combo up with people later on, and they can really make some crazy team-ups. Of course, Izuku doesn't have that many people in mind for that, but maybe that is for the future. Izuku would then get picked up by a car and get brought over to Fat Gum's agency. When he arrives, he's greeted by, well, the big oaf himself, Fat Gum. He'd get greeted in by Fat Gum, and he'd get introduced to all the people that are there, including one of the people at UA that is part of the Big 3 by the name of Tamaki. And he would introduce himself, of course, but Tamaki is that shy person he always is. Izuku thanks him for the opportunity, but Fat Gum counteracts and says that he thanks him for the opportunity. He sees how much good work Izuku has done, he's heard things that have happened in the past and what he's gone through, and on top of that, how well he utilizes his quirk. It's amazing, honestly. He can learn something from Izuku just as much he can learn from himself, or vice versa between each other. And Izuku is blasphemous about this compliment. He thinks this is amazing that Fat Gum himself just complimented himself, or complimented Izuku. And Izuku thanks him, of course, and he begins to ask what they plan on doing in terms of training. Fat Gum explains that he'll be working with Tamaki here. Tamaki is extremely powerful in his own right, especially with his quirk, and Izuku will be that protection that Tamaki wants and needs. Everyone needs that perfect partner, and Izuku would be in a perfect place to be that perfect partner for now. Of course, Izuku might find someone perfect, might find a long-range hero, might find someone that is great at brawling, but at the end of the day, this would be perfect for Izuku. Protect the person behind him, and have the person behind him do most of the damage. But Fat Gum does bring up that he can tell and has seen Izuku is very capable in terms of hand-to-hand combat. Maybe that's something he can even teach Fat Gum. Fat Gum doesn't really know martial arts very well, but he's heard Izuku is very good at it. Of course, Izuku says that he's okay. He's not amazing at martial arts, but he's definitely trained a good bit, so he would love to give him some pointers. Fat Gum is definitely interested in this, and their training begins for the next couple of days. Izuku learning basic techniques on how to protect people and combo move with Tamaki and anybody else that so chooses to basically train with them, and he would eventually teach Tamaki and obviously Fat Gum some martial arts. Obviously he doesn't know a crazy amount, mostly knowing karate, but other than that, he actually knows some basic jiu-jitsu and other martial arts as well. Of course, he's not a mastermind of all of them, but he is pretty decent at them, so he's able to give some pointers here and there that will definitely help them in the long run. Tamaki, of course, would thank Izuku in his own little shy, awkward way, Fat Gum doing so as well, and they would eventually decide on taking a bit of a stroll, aka a bit of a patrol. And that's exactly what would happen. they would head out to Hosu City. And the only reason why they want to head out here is because crime rates are extremely high over at Hosu. Fat Gum feels that they can at least get some action pretty quickly because he feels that everyone with him currently is action ready. So Fat Gum brings them out, and as they patrol, it seems pretty calm. They've seen a couple villains here and there, but it's nothing crazy to the point that he'll have to step in and basically protect his students. Nothing crazy ever goes on. They have a couple intruders that try to get into fist fights, and Izuku's able to shut it down pretty quickly. But other than that, it's actually pretty basic. Everything goes according to plan, but eventually night would begin to strike, and the growls of villains begin to arrive. It's odd. It feels eerie, but out of nowhere, it feels like the whole city is on fire. Well, that's because it literally is. A villain attack on Hosu City is beginning, and Izuku, Tamaki, and also Fat Gum is in the direct center of it. Of course, this is good and bad. He doesn't want Izuku and Tamaki to get hurt by any means, but at the same time, they're in perfect position to shut this down, immediately catching up with some of the Nomus that are there, and they're able to fight the Nomus off, especially with Izuku facing a Nomu before, taking an absolute beating. He walks up to one of the Nomus that are frankly weaker than the one before, and he's able to absolutely shred it. Immediately, Fat Gum is shocked. He's shocked to see that the person that he's been training to be a defensive wall is absolutely piecing up this monster, this strong villain, but Fat Gum is pretty impressed, telling Tamaki to get in there with him and that they should work on their teamwork as soon as possible. In doing so, they're able to blow through a bunch of these Nomus in a matter of minutes. Of course, Endeavor, Shoto Todoroki, and many others would eventually show up, destroying Nomu after Nomu as well. But during this time, Izuku begins to hear something. Begins to hear a man by the name of Emmanuel, basically running around calling for Tenya Ida. Realizing something's wrong, Izuku begins to run off, thinking that maybe he can find them. Tamaki follows, and they begin to search for Tenya Ida, eventually finding him with a sword in the side of him. He's not dead, but he's definitely bleeding pretty bad, and Tamaki sends out a large tentacle arm toward the person that has a sword in Tenya Ida's side. Smashing him away, Izuku jumps forward, grabbing Tenya as he jumps away to basically get him out of harm's way. Izuku stands in front of them, just like in the formation that they've been working on with Tamaki, and he looks toward the man. This man's eyes are deranged, terrifying, as if they haven't seen the sunlight in days. Izuku looks closer and he realizes exactly who this is. The hero killer, Stain. Stain begins to tell them that that is no real hero, and this native fellow, as he throws a knife at his neck, killing native, he says that that is no hero either. He looks at them two, and it seems as if Stain has a remark of pride in a way, thinking that these two right here, he can tell they're heroes. The one in front is seemingly standing strong, ready to take on any attack. The one in the back seems to have mental problems in terms of, well, being shy and all this other stuff. He can tell by the demeanor, but he's still out here fighting. Immediately trying to clash with someone like Stain. Stain says that they have his respect, at least so far, but let's see how far that respect truly goes. Stain comes in at a blazing speed, faster than anyone or Izuku has really seen ever, and swings his sword towards Izuku's arm. Izuku reaches out toward the sword, and Stain thinks that this kid is insane. He slices down Izuku's hand, but as he does this, there's no gash. There's only a slight scratch. That is it. Izuku is basically standing there ready again, and Stain is shocked. What the hell is wrong with this kid? How did that even happen? How is he able to just block it? It's only a scratch? Immediately, Stain charges in once again, but this time the sword clashes with his forearm, Izuku's forearm, and it shatters. Not his forearm, but the sword. The sword shatters to pieces, and Izuku lands a clean uppercut to the stomach of Stain, grabbing him by the arm and slamming him into the ground. Tamaki follows up with his Quirk, adding tentacle to his squid tentacles in, slamming him into the wall. and then also following up with a massive kick. Izuku runs over to finish the fight, hitting Stain right in the jaw and seemingly knocking him out. He begins to tie him up the best he possibly can, and Tamaki tends to the wounds that are on Tenya Ida currently. Izuku begins to drag out Stain, but just as he does, Stain wakes up and lands a cheap shot on Izuku, staggering him backwards, but luckily Tamaki is able to regain control and throws Stain into the street. Just as he throws Stain into the street, he immediately is slammed into a big man by the name of, well, Fat Gum. Fat Gum catches him within his body, and since Stain can't move at all, it seems like Stain will suffocate and pass out before he's actually arrested and sent off to prison. Luckily, everything from here on out went pretty smoothly, but Fat Gum tells them that they shouldn't have done something so reckless, telling Izuku that he doesn't even have a hero license and that Tamaki should be more careful because his could get easily revoked. And they apologize, but Fat Gum says that he didn't see anything and that he caught Stain on his own, and Tamaki helped him, of course. Izuku smiles and nods toward Fat Gum, as Fat Gum basically has Stain arrested and taken away. Izuku would then head back to the Fat Gum agency, but quickly he'd be told that since all of the stuff that happened, especially with Tenya Ida being hospitalized, so on and so forth, they're gonna unfortunately have to shut down the agency a little bit soon, or at least the internships a little bit sooner than expected. So Izuku would be sent back off to UA, and when he would arrive, Aizawa would begin to explain what's going to happen next, telling all of them that there is a strict agenda that they need to go by, especially after what occurred. He doesn't want any of them to basically be faltered in a way like this ever again, and Tenya Ida should make a full recovery, but there's a reason why this occurred, and they all most likely would understand why he would do it. But at the same time, a even temper needs to be established. Smart ethics and also basically not being stupid is important. Aizawa thought he instilled this in them, but it seems like he didn't, telling them all that this final exam will definitely prove them to be, well, worthy of continuing at UA and worthy of taking on the next challenge, which would be the forest training camp. Immediately, Aizawa tells them all that they have a couple days to study and to get ready for not only a practical exam, but also a written exam. Everyone agrees and is basically more motivated, especially after what occurred, and Izuku is as well. They study up like crazy, him and Kirishima, and a little bit of Bakugo, but of course Izuku is not too fond of Bakugo, and Izuku is pretty smart on his own, so he doesn't necessarily need Bakugo's help. But at the same time, Kirishima is kind of back and forth with Izuku's friend group and also Bakugo's, which is kind of lackluster anyways, but at the same time, they still have a good friendship. After a couple days would pass, they would finally start their written exam. And it goes pretty well. Izuku would probably score in about top 5 to top 7, nothing too crazy, but also pretty darn good. And obviously the main thing would be the practical. The practical is what matters, and they've heard rumors that it would be against robots. But even Izuku could assume that it's not going to be, especially on how he got into UA in the first place, because he wasn't just destroying robots. Izuku would head over with his class, and they would all have on their hero suits, and they would listen to the teachers. The teachers would bring up that normally it is against robots, but they've decided to do something more, well, practical. And they will have 2 students go against 1 teacher. All of the fights would be announced. People like Shota Todoroki and Momoya Yorozu will go against Aizawa, and more people are chosen for certain roles. Everyone gets their partner, and everyone gets their dance partner, quote unquote, to fight against. And guess who's left? And guess who's left over? And that's Izuku and Bakugo. Izuku is not too fond of this, but he can see why they would choose this. Bakugo telling him that now he doesn't need help from Izuku ever, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. Well, maybe he'll change his mind when he sees his opponent. When his opponent comes down from the skies screaming, "I am here," because it's All Might. All Might is the person they will have to face, but in theory, Izuku feels that this could be a possible challenge, but at the same time be a possible growing point for both of them to just straight up get stronger. Izuku sees a huge thing in this, but of course, I mean, it all depends on what Bakugo sees in the future. He tries to basically talk to Bakugo, plan anything. Bakugo doesn't budge. He tells Bakugo, though, that they need to do this. They need a plan. But how about this? He'll compromise. How about if Bakugo listens to the plan and he doesn't like it, he doesn't have to choose it and he doesn't have to use it. But I think he thinks that the plan will definitely be in the liking of Bakugo. Izuku begins to explain. All Bakugo really needs to know is that the whole plan is to defeat All Might, not run away and not escape. Bakugo smirks slightly at this, and Izuku continues. He begins to tell Bakugo that Bakugo will be doing all the damage, every bit of it, but every single punch All Might tries to throw will be blocked by Izuku. No damage taken, no damage dealt. Bakugo kind of smiles at this, but then wipes away his smirk, telling him fine, they'll do it his way. Immediately, it would be then their time to go. They would wait at the gates, ready to face down their hero, their idol, All Might, the #1 hero. The gates would swing open and they go charging in. Izuku would close the distance and even block the air compressed fire that gets thrown at them. He basically is able to swat it away around his body as Bakugo stands behind him, and Bakugo then realizes that Izuku is like a tank. Someone that is just a barrier, a shield that if you walk behind, he can get you anywhere. He doesn't want to say this to Izuku. I mean, he doesn't want to compliment him. Come on, why would he? But at the same time, he does sort of respect it. As they close in the distance toward All Might comes charging in with a Detroit Smash. Immediately, Bakugo thinks that this might be over for Izuku, and this is the only hit that they'll be able to absorb, but Izuku puts out his hand, grabbing the fist of All Might, and All Might is in complete shock. Izuku smirks, saying that he took the blows from the Nomu, and this prepared him for this moment specifically. He slams All Might on the ground as Bakugo comes in basically from above, sparking All Might like crazy, explosion after explosion after explosion. All Might goes to grab Bakugo, knowing that all of the damage, or most of the damage, will come from Bakugo. He tries to grab him, but immediately he grabs Izuku instead. That's because Izuku jumps in front of harm's way, and then he punches down on All Might's fists. Once he does that, he gets slammed back into the ground, and All Might is open for another explosion straight to the face. Getting hit by that explosion, All Might just took substantial damage. Izuku would then stomp on All Might's basically stomach or chest area, not actually realizing the damage that was there, but still hurting him quite a bit, even though he didn't know it was there. Izuku would get free, and he would stand firm with Bakugo once again. Everybody that's watching would think that this is a perfect time for them to start heading toward the exit. It would give them more leverage and so on and so forth, and they can even just escape. But that's not what they want to do. Immediately, All Might would stand back up and the fight would continue. Izuku would do his best to block all attacks coming, followed up by Bakugo's hits as well. And every hit that All Might tries to basically do on Bakugo, Izuku would try to jump in the way. Even Bakugo is now using Izuku as a literal shield, shooting explosions in between Izuku's arms and legs and stuff like that, knowing that it won't actually damage Izuku because he's on the verge of basically being immune to the explosions. Even with Bakugo training and getting stronger, those explosions still can't really damage Izuku. So he's literally as if he was some mobile riot shield. They continue this over and over again, beginning to wear out All Might, especially when some stray blasts land on his wound, his extremely injured, rib cage / lung. And once that next explosion lands on that lung, it basically crumbles All Might to the ground, and they're able to basically attach the capture bracelet around him, deeming him captured, and there it is. Izuku and Bakugo have won. Would they have won against an All Might without an injury? Definitely not. Of course not. But with an injury and being able to wear him out, that's exactly what they were able to do. All Might have crazy power, but so did the Nomu. And now that Izuku is durable to those Nomu's attacks, being basically equivalent to All Might, Izuku was able to take those blows, hold him off and basically have Bakugo do as much damage as possible. On top of that, the smoke and all of the chemicals within Bakugo's strengths and obviously his sweat would also have an effect on All Might, slowing him down bit by bit by bit. But all that matters is the victory, and that's exactly what they got. Aizawa tells them that they won, and Nezu deems them the victors, and of course they're gonna be allowed to go to the Forest training camp. All Might congratulates both of them, saying that he's extremely proud to see how far they have gotten. Of course, they thank him, and I mean, why wouldn't you thank your idol, literal idol? And Bakugo kind of shrugs off the idea that they just teamed up, but at the end of the day, he knows how beneficial that team up really is and may be in the near future. Nonetheless, all of the fights and testing is over, and Aizawa reveals that everyone's actually going to the Forest training camp, and he was just lying just a little bit, saying that the other people that failed will actually just be taking extra classes, in which everyone's fine with that, and the next day they would get packed up and head off onto the bus to join them on the Forest training camp. When they would leave, they would eventually arrive at a cliff and be greeted by the wild pussycats. They would look over the edge to see a beautiful forest and see a massive campground in the distance. That distance is easily like a mile away, a good bit away. And Izuku would look out and then realize something. Everything Aizawa does is for a reason. Why did they stop here? Oh god. He turns around to see the bus of Class 1B fly by, and even Izuku now knows. His classmates haven't clicked it yet, and Izuku looks at Aizawa, and Aizawa slightly smirks, as basically the ground beneath them begins to shift and toss them all off. Izuku just stands there staring at Aizawa as he gets thrown off the cliff and lands on the ground below. Of course, not injured, but now him and his classmates have to bury through tons and tons of monsters all the way to the forest, the Forest training camp. And that is where we'll leave off. We'll leave off right before they head into right before they have to fight all the monsters. And as always, I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment down below, all that good stuff, you know what I'm saying? Okay, all that good stuff. And I hope y'all enjoyed part 3 of What If Deku Had a Durability Quirk. And yeah, that's about it. I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.